to order. Roll call, please.
Here.
Councilman McBride.
Here.
Councilman Harrell.
Here.
Councilman Gann.
Here.
Councilman Hatmaker.
Here.
Councilwoman Manis. Here. And Mayor Burton.
Here. Public hearings on 3 ordinances. Ordinance number 684, this is amending the CMC Title 10 Inclusive Animal Control Ordinance. Anyone here would like to speak on that? Second ordinance is 685. This is amending the CMC Title 13, Chapter 2, Junked Motor Vehicles. Anyone like to speak on that? Last ordinance is ordinance number 686. This is amending the CMC Title 7, Chapter 2, and Title 12, inclusive, adopting the current versions of the various fire, building, housing, etc., standardized codes. That being said, I adjourn the public hearing. Regular meeting called to order. Roll call, please.
Councilman Quainer.
Here.
Councilman McBride.
Here.
Councilman Harrell.
Here.
Councilman Gann.
Here.
Councilman Hatmaker.
Here.
Councilwoman Manis. Here. Mayor Burton.
Here. Do I hear a motion for the approval of the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. This evening, our prayer will be given by Vice Mayor Gann. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our Father, we thank Thee for the blessings of living in this city, in this country. We thank You for how You have blessed us and taken care of us. We pray that You'd help us to remember the legacy that we're living on, the people who bled and died and who paid the price for us to be able to do this. Lead us as we make decisions that affect those around us today and the future people in this town, that we may make the appropriate and right decisions to make everything a better place for all concerned. Be with us now as we go about our business. Be with us as we come to the coming days. Lead, God, and direct us. From Thy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Larry. Do I hear a motion for the review and approval of the meetings of the previous meeting dated February 26, 2024?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. At this time, we'll recognize any visitors, citizens like to speak. Just step up and state your name and address, please.
Hello, I'm Nathan Sweet, EMS Director for Anderson County EMS, and it's usually good news when I'm coming to you all, and excited to take this opportunity to recognize some of the Clinton firefighters. For about this time, on March 4th of this year, mutual response with Clinton firefighters and Anderson County EMS responded to a scene in the city of Clinton, and through their efforts, their recognition, the skills, the abilities, the hard work that all crews did on that day, they successfully resuscitated an individual who was transported to the hospital on that day and was discharged back home on the 8th, 4 days later. They were seen at the hospital. They were treated for a heart cath and a blockage in their heart, which caused the cardiac arrest. But it is moments like this that having a department like Clinton Fire Department, with the trained personnel that you guys have made the investment in, the return on investment just really can't be stated in numbers. It really can't. It can be stated in feelings and emotions, but I think even then words can be inadequate. So I'd like to take the time to recognize the Clinton firefighters who responded on this call. So will Lieutenant Dakota Hood please come up? Firefighter Justice Maloney, please come up. And Firefighter Cole Allen, please come up. Gentlemen, I just want to say how thankful I am for you, not obviously a duty to respond. You're on duty, you kind of had to go. But your commitment to be prepared, your commitment to jump to the call to meet the need, guys, this is why we put in the hard work. It's for moments like this, and I know sometimes that doesn't come out this way. But your hard work played a role. God made the decision, but your hard work played a role. So thank you all very, very much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Nathan.
All right, I got some too.
State your name and address.
All right, Tom Becker, Chief of Police, and I'd like to give some letter of commendation to two police department employees with a little synopsis what they did. You guys will come up. Sergeant Larry Smith and Dispatch Supervisor Amy Jones. Greg? Is there anything you want to say, or you
Yeah,
want to?
absolutely. Okay, so a couple things. It was 2 weeks.
Greg, I'm sorry, do you mind, so everybody can hear, please? Thank you.
My name's Greg McBroom, and I live at 202 North Apache in Clinton. So probably 2 to 3 weeks ago, I was supposed to have had surgery. My surgery got canceled for a good reason. I come home, my wife had a seizure. She quit breathing. I had to give her CPR. I called 911. If it wasn't for Amy and if it wasn't for Larry Smith, my wife would not be here today. And if it wasn't for EMS, for their quick response, the fire department, I'm telling you, my wife would have died. They saved her life, and I cannot thank every one of you for what you've done. Everybody here that had a part in it. I can't remember all their names. The fire department, there was a bunch of guys there. There was a bunch of Clinton police officers there, but I know Larry was the first one through the door, and he relieved me from doing CPR on my wife. And Amy, she calmed me down because I was crazy. I was absolutely out of it. And she calmed me right down. She done a phenomenal job. And I just want to thank everybody for their role in it. So thank you so much.
So I couldn't have said that any better. So we have two letter of accommodations for Dispatch Supervisor Amy Jones. And it kind of gives that narrative of what he described. It was February 24th. And these two people responded just like we expected. And also Sergeant Larry Smith. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. I think I speak for the council and staff, how much we really appreciate all departments, but especially fire and police. Y'all do a great job each and every day. I know in this world we live in, sometimes that's not easy, but I certainly appreciate, as well as council, appreciates everything you all do. So, Mike, you got a good one. Just want to add that. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I'm David Worthington at 500 Hillcrest Street in Clinton. And I would like to ask City Council and the staff to please examine the stormwater drainage system on Hillcrest Street. With the more development and houses that come on the street, plus the more driveway cuts or access cuts that are put across Shin River Creek, it is bottling up causing a bottleneck of the stormwater drainage in extreme weather. And it used to be that, as Councilman Gann can acknowledge, it used to be about once every 10 years that we'd have a flooding situation on the street. But the more development that's going on down there, it's gotten to the point that it's annually or more often than that, that at least half of the street is flooded, and at least once a year to 18 months, the complete street has to be shut down because of flooding, and it's causing damage to the infrastructure under the roads. And it's just something that with more development, I think that we need to put that on high priority. And-
Okay. Thank you, David.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
I'll add to David's comment there. You know, that was out my back door for about 35 years, and I saw it very frequently. It is something we need to look at. You know, I don't know what we can do or whatever, but certainly I think we need to examine it.
Anyone else? Thank you. Thanks again, David. Anyone else? I know, when I walked in, I said, a lot of people were here. What's going on? And I realized that it's time for an audit. That's why everybody came, except for Don. Come on up, Don.
Yeah, I think as Don, we're gonna.
Name and address, please.
Thanks for your time. I've got my name's Don Hedden, and I live at 519 Greenwood Drive here in town. And there's a situation that exists on my street that's troubling to me and my neighbors. There's a house located at 515 Greenwood Drive that's being renovated. And that property consists of a wooded steep hill at the rear that adjoins property on Orchard Drive. So about 3 months ago, workers cleared most of the vegetation and trees off of that hillside and all the way down to bare earth. And at the bottom of the hill, they made a vertical cut in the hillside that's approximately 10 or 12 feet tall and the length of that house. And there's no supporting structure, retaining wall that's in place to keep the hillside from collapsing. I don't know if that's in the plans or not, but it's already that hillside is already starting to move a little bit. I spoke with Mr. Widner, I hope I pronounced his name right. Widener, okay, a couple of months ago to check to see if proper evacuation permits had been pulled, and I haven't checked back with him. I'm assuming they had, but hopefully I can get some guidance from you all here tonight. Let's see. Yeah. Does the city have a civil engineer or some type of engineer that can survey this property and see what's going to happen with that hillside? Because I know it's going to collapse if they don't do anything. The same thing has happened to a lot just right next door to it, that they did the same thing about 8 years ago, and that whole hillside has collapsed over time. And no retaining wall was ever put up there. So if I could get some input from you, I would certainly appreciate it, or see what my next step would be to get this fixed, because it's an eyesore. It's terrible looking.
Matt, would it be appropriate for you to bring him up to date, or you can talk to him later at a later date? But if you're
Yeah,
prepared, I'd like to hear what you have to say too.
Okay, I can give you a quick status if you'd like that. Yeah, so this is a property that is recently purchased by Jeremy Webb. He has a grading permit. There's no contractor license to have a grading permit, and that's what he's doing that work based on. There was work that was starting in the house. I had to issue a stop work notice because Jeremy is not a licensed contractor. He ignored that stop work notice, and then I actually spoke to him on the phone and convinced him that it's in his best interest to stop completely with the work on the house itself. There's no contractor license for the retaining wall, but if it's a 4-foot retaining wall, they're required to have an engineer design for retaining walls. And I told him that a wall will be required, but at this time, I think construction on that hill has primarily been cleanup has been continuing to grub and clean up, but But he should not be proceeding any further than that, except to get his permits with a licensed contractor. And that's where we are at the
Is
at
there
the
any
moment.
step past this? Because, again, I'm not a soil expert, but when I drive by it, it doesn't look good.
No, it doesn't. The next step would be a citation to court at this point. But what could we do? Do I feel like it's an imminent danger? No. It just doesn't look good. It's more of a property nuisance than it is an imminent danger.
But do you feel like it could be a danger down the road?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes. That's, that bank will do nothing but erode, so there is some validity to that.
You talk about 4 foot, is that 4 foot deep or 4 foot wide?
4 foot high.
4 foot
tall,
high, and it's
yes.
gonna have to be, I guess, taller than 4 foot for
Yes,
sure.
it'll have to be an engineered
Based
Yeah,
design.
that cut is much more than 4 feet, yes.
So what are we waiting on this? Are we waiting on citation? Are we waiting for another reason for
So,
the citation, or is
he-
it something we can do now?
Well, he gave me, he told us that he was working on getting a solution, getting his contractor license, and if he could continue with the grubbing and cleaning up the yard, and we gave him the permission to proceed with that. What we can do now is literally, so to my knowledge, he has stopped, so he's not violating the stop work notice. I imagine if I have work outside of what has already been approved, then that would be a constitution, that would constitute a citation to court. And that's where we are.
Okay.
And how long do we give them before we issue something like that after you do it?
So if they stop, he does currently have a grading permit, so earthwork can continue, and as long as that is continuing, unless they're dragging it onto the street, or I'm getting complaints about that, or we see a safety violation, then they have until the project's finished to work on that. It doesn't really
Okay.
expire. If they stop working on it altogether, then all permits end after 180 days. The permits expire. So as long as there's improvement or a work continuing, then it's an open permit. But he doesn't have a building permit for the structure, and he doesn't have a building permit for the retaining wall at this point.
Which will take a engineer.
For the
structural
retaining
engineer.
wall, yes, sir.
So, Matt, is there ever a point where you go and say,
Enough's
yes,
enough.
this is good, no, but this is good, you pass, or, no, you're liable for this, and you got to fix it?
Well, sure. It just depends on the situation, of course, but there is a point where a condition sits longer than reasonable, and reasonable is a very subjective term, but longer than reasonable. If it becomes an imminent danger, that's an immediate action on behalf of the city to do some temporary measure to make it safe. If there's continual complaints or mud in the street or erosion sediment control, then we can cite through the land, through TDEC. There's a way to go through the citation process for that. But a building vacant is not a violation of our ordinance. So as long as it's secured and there's no squatters or crimes or any other generating complaints, if it's a vacant, unfinished building, otherwise secured, it could sit indefinitely.
I'm not so worried about, of course, the dwelling. I'm more concerned about the soil. Yeah, I had a call a couple months ago, maybe even longer than that, from the neighbor above them, which we all probably know. He was concerned about, it going, that erosion sneaking up on his property and causing damage, which
So,
is fair.
If we, through our site visits, if we see an excessive amount of erosion occurring, and we see trees, looks like they're undermined, the root systems are undermined, then we could start looking at his current grading permit and review it for violations of the SWIP plan, of the erosion control practices, and then we could cite based on, we could stop that work and then focus his attention on bank stabilization and retaining wall before issuing his building permit. We have those options. to
That he
us,
would
too.
be liable to make those corrections and make it
Yes,
for all of
sir.
it.
Yes, sir.
stabilize.
Mr. Widener, I got a question.
Yes.
Where are we on time frame? Just so I can get a sense of
Well,
where we're coming from.
so I don't have that permit in front of me. I would have to look at when the grading permit was specifically issued, but I know it's been the better part of a year. It has been issued a better part of a year.
Okay.
That's what I can safely say right now. But I don't have it in front of me to speak dates.
Yep. That's long enough, yeah.
You good?
One more thing.
Yeah.
You said something about the structure being unstable or open. What they've done in the last few weeks, they tore one side out of it to put, I saw them moving some large, like fiberglass shower enclosures in there, and it's just wide open. There's a piece of plywood laying up against it, but that's just the condition. And when I look at my window, I look right at it, and it's very, very unsightly. And anyway, but thank you for your time.
Don, thank you for bringing this up to our attention. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Once again, a reminder about a lot of the ordinances that we have on the agenda tonight deal with these issues, and also the new one that we got on here tonight, the administrative hearing officer, will be things that property maintenance will take the administrative hearing officer that gives us a totally different avenue to help deal with some of these issues in a more timely fashion.
Great.
Good.
Thank you. Thanks, Matt, for that explanation. All right. We're ready.
Dressed to the nines.
I got one at home.
Good evening, Gary Mitchell with Pew CPAs. I've also got Ted Holtz from Pew CPAs here with me as well. I agree, Mayor. I thought I was going to have a fantastic, huge crowd for presenting the audit, and they were really enthused about it. But anyway, those are
The
fantastic.
day has finally come.
That's right. I was got my largest crowd ever for an audit presentation. But those are fantastic stories that we heard, so that was worth coming as well. Want to first say we appreciate the opportunity for being the auditor of the city and the schools for another year. I am here to present the June 30, 2023 financial statements. Do apologize for the delay in getting out here to present them. I was gone in January, actually picking up my adopted daughter from Bulgaria, and was gone in February as well, taking her for just some medical appointments at Vanderbilt. So it is now March, and we're finally presenting the audit report, but better late than never, and did want to assure the council that everything was done by December 31st like we were required to. All the reports were filed with the entities and everything. So audit was done on time. And did also want to make sure to express our appreciation to Chris and to Scott and to Gail as well still about the fantastic help that we get from them. They make this audit process go very smoothly and help to make sure that we do get the audit done on time. I'll try to be fairly brief. Only take 5-10 minutes at the most, and go through some of the high points here. I will start with the big document, which is the actual act for itself. And again, don't be afraid. I'm not going through all 150 of these pages here. I've only got a few to talk about, but it is a big document. It takes a lot of time and effort again by Chris, Gail, and Scott, and they do a good job on it. So if you'll look on, it's page number 8 at the bottom of the big financial statement document. This is the independent auditor's report on the financial statements. And this is one of what we consider to be one of the most important parts of the financial statements, because this gives our opinion on the financial statements, and this is the important piece that we get paid for, and that is to provide the opinion on the financial statements. And we are pleased to report that once again, we are presenting an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion on the financial statements. So we conducted all of our audit procedures and did not have any material changes that need to be made to the financial statements. So that is a good thing. And then moving past page number 8 there, kind of give you a high-level overview of the financial statements. After our audit opinion, you flip over a few pages, start on page 11, there's what's called management discussion and analysis. And this has got a lot of good information in it. It presents a high-level overview of the financial statements. So if you don't want to read all 150 pages that follow it, you can read the few pages of the MD&A to give you a good overview of what's going on in the city. And then after that, starting on page 22, there's what we call the full accrual financial statements, which are the set of financial statements that include just the fund financials that you're used to looking at on a monthly basis, but also include some of the end-of-year adjustments that are made that include stuff like capital assets and long-term debt, pension liabilities, and that kind of stuff. I'm not going to spend any real time on that, but just know that those financial statements are there. And then if you'll flip a few more pages over to page 25 at the bottom, this is where we get into what's more the budgetary basis of accounting, which is probably the basis you guys are more used to seeing. And I'll just highlight a few things here. At June 30th, 2023, total assets were $32 million, which was up approximately $3 million from the prior year. Total liabilities were $5 million, which was up approximately $2 million from the prior year. And the reason for both of those is just a minor way of how we are accounting for some funds that are due to and due from the general fund and the general purpose school fund. Really, if you net all that out, it's about flat for the year in all respects. And then if you look down at the bottom, you'll see total fund balance for all of the different funds total up to approximately $20 million, which is about $1 million more than last year. So moving in the right direction. And then if you'll flip over 2 pages, you'll kind of get a detail of what makes up that positive change of $1 million during the year. It's page number 27. You'll see total revenues for 2023 were $26.4 million, which was a decrease of about $3 million for the year, and this is mainly because of all of the federal ARPA grants that were received in 22 and 23. You got all that federal stimulus money that the city basically got for free, and you had to spend it in a certain period of time. That all ran through 2022, so that money was not reoccurring. It was not in 2023, so that's why revenues were down. Expenditures for 2023 were largely flat. General fund was up a little bit, but overall the city was down just a hair of $300K. And so bottom line number there is we had the $1 million positive change in fund balance for all the funds. The general fund was increased by $500,000, the schools by about $400,000, and then $100,000 for the other funds. So most important takeaway here is at the end of the year, fund balance for the general fund was $14.3 million, which is still a very healthy, very strong amount that approximates to almost a year's worth of expenditures in the general fund. So that's a very healthy fund balance by any measure. Skipping almost to the back. I'm not gonna discuss all the notes here. If you skip to the back, at the very, very back of the report, there's a couple more auditors' reports that come from us that are on our letterhead. These are the reports on internal control over financial reporting and on city and schools compliance with all their federal awards. That starts on page 169 and goes down back through page 173. And I'll highlight page 173. It's what I consider to be the most important page in the back. It's titled Schedule of Findings and Question Costs. And the most important thing here to note is we had no findings and we had no question costs. So that's, again, a very good thing. Annually, we're required to look at certain federal programs, federal grant awards that the city gets, and we didn't have anything to report on those, so that's a good thing. So that is it. That's everything I'm going to go through on the big audit report, unless anybody's got any questions on that one before I move on. Yes, sir.
I have the same question. I think I've been up here 16, 17 years, but where is the schedule for the debt? What page is it on?
Schedule for the debt is on page 140.
Is that what you said, Scott Ray? I don't know. Yeah, you do.
I did have it dog-eared. So
okay, good. What is that?
If you look on page 140 and 141, you'll see the roll forward of the debt is on page 140. So
okay.
at the end of the year, you've got your debt broke out by notes payable, bonds payable, and other loans payable.
Okay.
And then what you're probably looking for on page 141, the next page, that's the amortization schedule for the debt. So you'll see that virtually all the debt is paid off by the end of June 30, 2026. There's only one small issuance that goes past then.
It's always been my goal to be less debt today than I was yesterday, and less in debt tomorrow than I am today. And so we're still on that same track. So that's awesome.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, there was no new debt issuances during the year. All right, so
Any questions? Is there anything, I always ask this too, is there anything that you're concerned about or keeping your eye on that we may need to look at for the future?
We've gotten past the majority of the federal awards, so that's good. That's kind of phasing out. I guess the the most important thing is as you guys do begin to retire all your debt, then you're going to get into the point where you are going to need to do more capital asset purchases and that kind of stuff. So that's what I believe you all are building up the fund balance for. If I remember correctly, that's something like $4 or $5 million that is earmarked for capital improvements in the future. So that's something to keep an eye on, is what are you going to spend that fund balance on, and make sure that's properly accounted for.
Okay.
And then I was going to go over real quick, the small report here. This is our report to the city council. It's only a few pages long. If you flip over to page 1, it talks about our responsibility as auditors with regards to the financial statements. There's a section on accounting policies and practices. Really, there were no new accounting policies or practices adopted during the current year, so nothing to report there. On page 2, it lists audit adjustments and uncorrected misstatements. We did not have any audit adjustments that were required to be made to the financial statements. We had a couple of small uncorrected adjustments, mainly around some accounts payable or accruals at the end of the year. But those were small and immaterial, so we and management were able to pass on those. And then a couple more pages about independence, and then on page 4, you'll note there's a couple of significant accounting estimates that we want to bring to your attention we bring to your attention every year, but something to be mindful of, because these kind of are a little bit more subjective numbers that have a big splash on your financial statements, and those are the depreciation of your capital assets and your pension and OPEB liabilities. So it's something to be aware of there, but we do review those every year and didn't have any issues on those as well. And then following that is just a copy of the management representation letter that we have Chris Gale Scott sign that represents everything that they've given us during the year and told us was correct. So that is the end of my presentation. If anybody has any other questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Any other questions? Thank you.
All right, thanks again.
See you next year.
That's right.
Communications from the mayor. Only thing I have is the Safe Haven Baby Box Blessing is, I guess we're going to have like a ribbon cutting on that April 17th at 3 p.m., and that's Fire Station number 2. That's the one in South Clinton.
What time?
3 o'clock. Under committee reports, city school board report. Kelly?
So Scott Ray knows you very well, because as he was talking to the auditors, he said, make sure that you have the schedule of debt pulled up, because they're going to ask about it. So Jim McBride, he knows you well.
You daggum right.
Just a couple of quick announcements. Wanted to let you know that we have rescheduled the Commissioner of Education's visit, so she will be at Clinton Elementary School this Thursday at 10 o'clock, and we will be having a school assembly, and there will be a special recognition at that event. So if you all are available, we would love to have you. It's going to be held in the gym at 10 o'clock on Thursday. So as our understanding that Commissioner Reynolds will be there. I know that Bob Eby, I just got a text message from him. He's the state school board chair out of Oak Ridge, and he will be attending that event as well. Wanted to give you a quick update on our voucher. It's still making its way. The voucher bills are still making its way through the committees. The Senate and the House version is very different at this point, so there's a full expectation that that will land itself in a conference committee before hitting the floors. It was supposed to hit the House Finance Committee this week, and they pulled it off of the agenda. Speculation is that they did not have the votes for that to pass through, and it was going to fail in the finance, and so they have removed it for a week to do whatever happens in the political world that I don't like to talk about. So anyway, we'll just continue to follow that. April the 6th, Catherine is not here, so I'm going to channel my inner Catherine and let y'all know about the Mosaic Arts Festival on April the 6th. There is a location change. We are excited to be moving that in front of the community center and the library. And so the Clinton City Schools Art Show will actually be held in the ballroom. Is that the right word, Roger? The great room? The great room, the ballroom, that pretty room at the community center. We're going to have our art show in there this year, and then there will be there'll be musical performances from many of our Blaze well-rounded activities, and then obviously we will be showcasing the new turtle and the new Storybook Trail. So we're excited about moving that to a new location.
What time is
this
that
year.
again?
It's going to be from, I think it is 10 to 4, if I'm not mistaken. And then wanted to let you know that we are actually moving sixth grade graduation this year to the Clinton Community Center gym. And so we have officially outgrown every single venue that we have in Clinton, and we're so thankful to Faith Promise, but we've had to break it up into 2 different graduations, and we really want to bring that back together for one Clinton City graduation. So we worked with JB and Roger, and so we will be holding that on May 23rd at 9 o'clock. So it will be one graduation ceremony again this year, May 23rd at 9 o'clock at the Clinton Community Center gym. And then finally, we are doing kindergarten registration. So if you know anyone who turns 5 on or before August the 15th of this year, send them our way and we'll get them registered for kindergarten. And we are also accepting pre-K applications. So if you know anyone who is turning 4 on or before August the 15th, then encourage them to come get a pre-K application. Any questions for me?
Any questions for Kelly? Thank
And
you.
Scott has budget amendment number 5.
Number 5.
I'd first like to start off by saying I agree with Dr. McBride on the debt schedule. I have 2 mottos when it comes to the debt. You don't borrow money unless it's for growth and development, and you don't borrow money if it's just the status quo. We should have that fund balance to maintain the status quo, and that's how we've worked the school system for the last 10 years. I think we're definitely on the same page there. And secondly, my hats are off to Pugh and Company. They have great senior management, very knowledgeable. And Chris has done a great job. I feel fortunate because I have resources I can reach out to, and I'll just take the credit for what they've told me to do, of course. So with that being said, budget amendment number 5, you should have in your board packets. It's $40,500 and change. It represents a state pre-K grant. And this is kind of I think it's the first time we've gotten a state pre-K grant. So it really tells us that the state's moving in a direction to put their money behind what they say is important, this program. With that being said, it's not additional money to fund the status quo. It's additional money to implement a specific program. It's much like most federal grants. It doesn't replace what you're already doing and just give you more money. It's to do something specific in addition to what you're already doing, and that is the case for this budget amendment. So that brings our total budget to, with all 3 funds, to about $13,400,000. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions for Scott? Hear a motion for passage of budget amendment number 5?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Quainer.
Yes.
Councilman McBride.
Yes.
Councilman Harrell.
Yes.
Councilman Gann.
Yes.
Councilman Hatmaker.
Yes.
Councilwoman Maynard.
Yes.
Mayor Burton.
Yes, budget amendment number 5 passes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Clinton Regional Planning Commission report, Vice Mayor Gann.
The Board of Zoning and Appeals and the Regional Planning Commission met on Monday, March 11th. The Board of Zoning and Appeals, Isaiah 117 House, requesting a variance to section 2.4.4.A of the zoning ordinance to allow for a second driveway on the property located at 629 Woodland Drive. This is primarily a measure, if you're familiar with Isaiah House, it's to deal with children that have been removed from various circumstances, and the idea is for some privacy in giving them this second driveway, so it's not exposed to everybody, and that was approved by the BZA. Applicant CSR Engineering, Bartlett Industrial Properties, requesting a variance to section 6.1 of zoning ordinance, reduce their rear setback from 25 to 10 for property located at 115 Eagle Way. This is so that they can bring in and take out some of their material by rail. And in order to get the appropriate curve there, without having to have a number of problems, they needed this additional space. And based upon the need and the circumstances, it was also approved. And then the Regional Planning Commission, applicant Aspire Foundation requesting rezoning from B2 to P1 for property located at Clinch Avenue. The property is currently zoned B2. If you've driven out there, this is the property where the new sign is located. And there are plans in the future to consolidate all that property into one piece. And so based upon that, that was recommended by the Regional Planning Commission for approval to rezone. Applicant Ward Land Surveying requesting final plat review for property located at 911 Eagle Bend Road. This was a redivision of property, and it was approved. Applicant Rick Meredith, Anderson County Chamber of Commerce, requesting site plan approval for property located at 245 North Main Street. This is the new chamber building. This is the preliminary report, and after a brief discussion, this also was approved. Applicant Mark Duval requesting preliminary PUD site plan approval for property located at Frank L. Diggs Drive. The property is currently zoned M2. This is a preliminary plan for a PUD, and final site plan will be submitted in the future to include stormwater requirements. Based upon what has already been accomplished, there was recommended approval of the preliminary site plan, and after discussion, it was approved. Public hearing for amendment proposal to modify subdivision regulations to delete Article 3, Section 8.16.c, to delete in its entirety and insert lots shall adhere to the minimum lot size as specified in the designated zoning classification. Lots where sewer is not available shall be required to meet a minimum of 1/2 acre. This is like we have been trying to do through the codes enforcement to clean up some of the verbiage and some of the inaccuracies within the code itself, and this is one of them to try to clean this up and make it a little bit more appropriate for today's time. And after that, we had a hearing on that, and then after that, it was the Planning Commission recommended that this be submitted to council. Applicant Kelvin Stokes requesting final plat review and approval for property located at Hillcrest Street. This request is for a final plat served by joint permanent easement. Corrections have been devised except for the maintenance agreement. There are a number of things, including paving instead of gravel with a concrete apron, raising elevation floor levels, and installing flow-through vents. This, as Mr. Worthing was talking about, this property has a history of flooding, but it is not located in the floodplain. And there are a number of recommendations from the codes department that I think they're going to discuss. Under our current codes, he does meet our current guidelines. We are going to have to upgrade some of those guidelines, but at the present time, he does meet them. Based upon a roll call vote, this did pass 4-2 to give him approval to that. And then amendment proposal to modify a zoning code, adding a new section 5.7.12, use permitted by special exception in B4 and 5.0 provisions to allow for the potential of multifamily dwellings with 5 or more continuous dwelling units per building. This is targeted at there's been some issue or some request for the possibility of multifamily housing along Seavers Boulevard up toward exit 122. And rather than make a total widespread decision, this allows us to deal with it on a case-by-case basis and say, do we want to do this or not, rather than just say, okay, it's open, or no, it's closed. Any questions?
Any questions for Vice Mayor Gann? You know, I would like that, maybe, I probably could ask this later on, but I met with Mr. Worthington today, and Jeff, this might be a question for you or someone else, but that they build those housing around this high school, do y'all make a determination if a hydrant is warranted in that area? Is that, y'all just? Okay, but you would think that, I think the closest one is about 800, 900 feet. So,
Probably be required, we'll probably require.
okay, so that answers one of your questions there. Okay, thank you, appreciate it. Any other questions for Larry?
Might also mention, while I've got the floor, Green McAdoo is making plans for some of the things, the summer music. They're making some big plans on that and trying to involve themselves in some activities up there. Adam is continuing to work at it.
Thanks, Larry. Clinton Utilities Board report?
CUB did meet last Thursday. Nothing special in the report. We did ask the question about the snowstorm that happened a few weeks ago, a month or so ago, 6 weeks. CUB actually fared very well through that, so that was one of the topics. So nothing special to report.
Any questions for Jim? Thanks, Jim. General Government Report, Mr. Houck.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of house cleaning things. A couple of city council meetings we need to change the dates on. The May city council meeting, which falls on Memorial Day, we recommend changing the May city council meeting to Tuesday, May the 28th at 5:30 p.m. And we recommend changing the July city council meeting, which is on July 22nd. That is in conflict with the TML annual conference, which is being held in Knoxville this year. We recommend changing it to Monday, July 29th at 5:30 p.m.
Hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, sir. Finance, I'll defer to Chris.
All right, thank you, Roger. This report is through February 29th. We're 67% of the way through the fiscal year. I can report to you that we collected a little over 99% of our property tax, so we were on the mark again this year for collections. We've collected 77.5% of our projected revenues, so we're doing well there. We spent 81% of our expenditure budget, but keep in mind, we've had some large capital purchases so far this year. So we are tracking well there. You all approved budget amendment number 2 last month that was a little over $4 million, and it was entirely capital purchases. Just going quickly to the local option, we kind of came back down to earth from the previous month after Christmas ended, but we still outperformed the same month this time last year by about 6%. So we're doing well with local option, which means the economy, at least for Clinton, is keeping its head above water. So we're doing well there. So if you got any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions for Chris? Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
One thing with the audit, I know they did talk about that our fund balance had grown quite a bit and the possibility of spending for capital projects. One thing, just a reminder, which we did the budget amendment last month, I think since July 1, and I had a list and I didn't bring it with me, since July 1 with I think 3 renovation projects, the 2 paving projects, purchased the fire truck, the J.C. Pool project, the playground project there, the tennis court repaving, several smaller projects, the grader that we bought. I think we've close to spend around $4.5 million since July 1. So that fund balance, we have dwindled it down quite a bit just this year alone. Probably one of the biggest spending years we've had on equipment, paving, and projects already. So we've got a lot going on, and we've spent a lot of that money and have plans with the TAP grant should be kicking off here real soon. And we have a 20% match on it, which is about a $5 million project. So we've got quite a bit going on that.
I think it's, to reiterate that this is money that's been put aside and saved by council and staff for these projects to happen.
Yes.
So just want to make clear that that's understood.
Yes.
In my comments earlier about borrowing money, I don't mind to borrow money. I'm for borrowing money. But when I assumed this position, we were in debt and we really didn't have anything to show for it, in my opinion. That's just my personal opinion. We hadn't built a school, we hadn't renovated the community center, we were buying used police cars. I mean, so I'm not sure what that was finances and what got us into those shapes, but I'm not for hoarding money. But at the same time, I do think we need to be good stewards of the money and things just like this. I mean, we know we know a fire truck's gonna wear out. So why do you go borrow money to buy a fire truck? Let's set aside some money. We know police cars are gonna wear out. I think we're on a rotation now where we're
We have
buying
been.
new police cars.
Yes.
So many a year. I mean, and that's the plan. Equipment, fire equipment, road graders, backhoes, all that stuff's gonna wear out. And so my goal has been, and I think as a council we've done, is
And we've been
let's donate-
reserving this money over the years
Yeah.
to replace these things.
Yeah.
We got the feasibility study on the community center last Thursday, Friday. So we've got it to look at and plans for the renovation of it. The Armory, the plans have been submitted to the State Fire Marshal for the renovation of the old National Guard Armory. So there's 2 more projects that'll be coming within the next 6 to 12 to 18 months. So we've got money set aside for those projects.
Well, staff has a whole lot to do with that, and your leadership and financial, and you guys, I mean, you all give us good direction, but we vote to spend the money, but it's based on your all's research and what you do, and you've led us, I think you've led us well, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay. Police Department. The Police Department has updated and revised the record policy and procedures guideline. It was last updated in 2018. The significant changes include modifying the fee schedule to be comparable with the current Anderson County Sheriff's Department and THP fee schedule, and allowing the storage lot to be located within 10-mile radius of Clinton City Hall. Based on the review of the proposal, I recommend acceptance of the new policy.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Vaughn, is there anything else you'd like to add, and as far as any big changes or anything?
No, so one big change is allowing them to tow cars outside the city. Before, they had to have the lot inside the city. So that's probably the major change, but still the lot has to be within 10 miles of City Hall, so that's pretty close.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Mayor, that's all I've got tonight.
Any questions for Roger?
Just a comment, recently I had some work done at my house, and there were a bunch of limbs and stuff that were there, and the guy was asking me, he said, what do you mean do these? And I said, brush pickup day's tomorrow, it'll be picked up. And he said, are you sure? And I said, brush pickup's tomorrow, it'll be picked up.
Good.
And with all our storm damage and everything, I think our people have done a fantastic job of keeping our city looking good. I can't help but laugh. If any of you've seen the brush thing about Knox County that's on TV, it looks like their truck is about to rust out. If any of you've seen it, and compared to our vehicles, I thought, okay, why don't you come to a small town and see how it's really done? But kudos to our department for keeping us looking good.
Well, how many cities edge their sidewalks?
I was getting ready to say that. I
I drove by, I almost cussed at Dwayne. They're out there tired and everything. Dwayne's in there AC, drinking a soda. No, he wasn't. But really, seriously, how many cities you know it does that?
I travel to Morristown a lot to my parents, and I mean sidewalk, grass growing up, and you can't, I mean, even in front of Mom's house, you know, storm drains broke apart, brick and so forth. So yeah, it's,
Yeah.
we're an exception.
Our public
There's
service
no
people
doubt.
are doing a good job.
Right. Okay, with that being said, thanks, Roger. Ordinances and resolutions. First reading of new ordinances. This is ordinance number 687. This is amending the CMC Title III Municipal Court, adding Chapter 5 Administrative Hearing Officer. Roger, I don't know if you'd like to speak on that, or Matt would like to speak on that, or both.
Probably defer to Matt. I can a little bit, but I'll let Matt, he actually wrote it, and this is something that we've talked about for a couple of years, but I'll let him kind of touch base on it. Go ahead.
So it's brand new. It is not to replace the city judge. That is not the intent of an administrative hearing officer. As you know, city judges are a valuable resource to the city, and I don't intend to take anything away from that position. But this is Tennessee allowed, there's several cities that's doing it. It's a TCA-enabled position that is to our disposal, another tool in the shed of code enforcement, if you will. It's mainly for environmental purposes. And fines, as you know, in city court is usually limited to $50 a day, or $50. Well, administrative hearing officers can go up to $500 a day if need be, in residential occupancies and in commercial occupancies, which, by the way, is residential rental properties, can go $500 a day per violation per day. So you see where I'm going with that. So it is appointed by, recommended by city manager and appointed by council on a 4-year term, on a price schedule that, on a pay schedule that is approved by council. It is the administrative hearing officer works for council, if you will. And they'll be hearing all the cases related to building planning, building zoning, the trades. The only thing that they won't hear is actual straight-up fire codes. That's not, that's a specific exemption from what they can hear. Although the property maintenance code does have fire codes in it, they can hear it if it's under the precept of the property maintenance code, but not directly out of the IFC International Fire Code. This is the first reading, and so having firsthand knowledge of this position, it is an effective means of convincing violators to do the right thing, or it will cost them much more than what we currently get under city court.
So one of the challenges you have is you come upon a blighted property, something that, and there's no response. You try your best to reach out, and that's what we've had in the past. We reach out, try to get them to work with us, but there's really not a lot of teeth. This type of position, this officer could go to this blighted property and have a discussion with this property owner, come up with ideas of how they need to correct it. But then if ample time's given and it's not corrected, this person can go back again, but they can find this property owner on the spot, or how does that?
No.
Give me an exact
Okay.
example
All right. I
of
can
a
do that.
blighted property.
Sure. Let's say it's blighted property. Let's say it's mowed grass or any of the violations. The hearing officer doesn't necessarily visit the property at all. That
Okay.
is the city staff that will do that.
Okay.
We'll be visiting the properties. We'll give reasonable time for the alleged violator, give them reasonable time to make the necessary corrections. If in fact they do not make the necessary corrections, it is code enforcement's decision as to whether or not an AHO, administrative hearing officer, approach is necessary. And normally, if we've mowed the grass or we've had to board the property as the city, we've had to board the property, or we've had to spend some sort, go above and beyond in the notice of violation to gain compliance, it is reasonable then to issue an AHO citation in response to that, in addition to the lien that we would file against the property. The administrative hearing officer then would process that citation. We would get the notice to the alleged violator, and within 7 days, the administrative hearing officer, with the preponderance of all evidence, will make a decision what fine, if any, is appropriate. If the alleged violator wants to have a hearing, they can petition by written request that a hearing occur. Then we would actually hold a hearing no sooner than 30 days once the notice is given. And we would hear all sides and then have the decision rendered at that point. Once a fine has been agreed upon or ordered, let's put it this way, once a fine has been ordered by the AHO, an invoice is sent to the now violator, is no longer alleged, is now a violator, and they're given 30 days to pay it. If they don't, then it becomes a lien on the property. If the individual, the violator wants to appeal that, then it's an appeal through Chancery Court. So that's how that works. The administrative hearing officer is the one who reviews the case on both sides and makes an administrative judgment on what appropriate fines fit the crime, if you will. So that's how that works. The administrative hearing officer has full authority, if you will, to either delay a decision based on more evidence or to make the rendering as soon as 7 days. So it's completely up to the admin hearing officer.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So from a benefit standpoint in this position, are they going to qualify for health care?
No, well, I'm sorry.
Is it an hourly thing? Because you might not meet every month.
Yeah, we're planning on meeting every month.
Okay.
It'll be a contract sort of as the city attorney or the, probably more like the city attorney. We'll plan on meeting once a month. We've put some numbers in for a budgeted position. It'll probably, I would say it'll definitely pay for itself. Like I said, once again, they can set higher fines. But we plan on at least having one hearing a month, possibly even two during the summer hours, because you'll definitely have more cases, but at least once. I talked with MTAS last week because there is an MTAS, by state law, there is an MTAS class that they have to have training. When I talked to MTAS last week, they had a class that was scheduled, I think, for this Thursday, either last Thursday or this Thursday. But Goodlettsville, Knoxville, Chattanooga, Nolensville, Crossville, Union City, Maryville, Signal Mountain, Kingston, Spring City, and Savannah all are signed up to go to this. So there's several cities going to it.
Just kind of odd that, you got something else to say?
Well, I was just going to remind you all, back in 2000, I think it was around 16, 17, this was the procedure that we used when we did the Magnet Mills cleanup. We hired the now clerk and master to be our administrative hearing officer instead of going through city court. We did it through the administrative hearing, and that's how we did the Magnet Mills process for the cleanup event.
I was saying this, I never have really got it straight in my mind. The city judge position, they get health care. City attorney doesn't, and administrative officer, which is really a judge, doesn't. So to me, it just doesn't all fall in line, so to speak, but just a thought there, but that's fine. I just wonder how it's kind of different how it's set up for each position, so. Any other questions? I'm sorry? I would have your motion.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussions? Roll call, please.
Councilman Quainer.
Yes.
Councilman McBride.
Yes.
Councilman Harrell.
Yes.
Councilman Gann.
Yes.
Councilman Hatmaker.
Yes.
Councilwoman Manis.
Yes.
And Mayor.
Yes, ordinance number 687 passes on first of two readings. Ordinance number 688, this is rezoning B2 to P1 Aspire Park. This is Yarnell Road at Clinch Avenue.
It's that small triangle there
Where
next
Summers Monument.
Yeah, right there, that's already attached to the Aspire Park. It's just a continuation of it. They're needing to have it.
So the park in itself is already a P1.
Yeah.
Then where they're going to put the sign, which is across the road, just a little small little track, they just want to include that as the P1 designation.
Correct, that's correct.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Quainer.
No.
Councilman McBride.
Yes.
Councilman Harrell.
Yes.
Councilman Gann.
Yes.
Councilman Hatmaker.
Yes.
Councilwoman Manis.
Yes.
Mayor Burton.
Yes, ordinance number 688 passes on first of two. Second readings have ordinance number 684. This is amending CMC Title 10, inclusive animal control ordinances. Matt, would you like to speak on that?
Sure. Yes, sir. So as you're familiar, this is essentially an entire animal control ordinance amendment. And in that is the additional chapter for urban chickens, keeping of hens. It essentially allows there's been no changes since first reading. It essentially allows 6 hens per single-family dwelling and renter or owner occupied, renter at the permission of the owner. There's some chicken coop, hen house requirements, fenced-in yard, keeping the hens on the property, not in the front yard, in the side backyards. There's removal provisions in here, as well as care and maintenance. So essentially, there's no changes from first reading.
Have a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Quainer.
No.
Councilman McBride.
Yes.
Councilman Harrell.
Yes.
Councilman Gann.
Yes.
Councilman Hatmaker.
Yes.
Councilwoman Manis.
Yes.
And Mayor Burton.
Yes. Ordinance number 684 passes on the second reading, second and final reading. Ordinance number 685, this is amending the CMC Title 13, Chapter 2, Junked Motor Vehicles. Matt?
Okay, so this is adding, this is junk vehicles, not so much junk motor vehicles, because the vehicles include literally everything that can be pushed, pulled, or otherwise transported, and for both provisions for both residential and public properties, timeframes, and whatnot as far as towing, which will work with the police department's towing contractors or towing list. There has been no changes since first reading on this, so I'm available for questions.
Hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? One comment I wanted to make on that was I've gotten a little bit of feedback as far as coming on private property to potentially tow or drag or take the junk vehicle off the property. I'm assuming, just saying this publicly, that y'all gonna have, there's a step process for all that to happen. Y'all, I mean, there's just like it's going to happen and that we're going to take the vehicle. It's going to be a long process that if they don't comply, that can be removed.
Sure, there is a process. I mean, it's called due process, and the timeframes that's listed allows for that due process to occur. And that's everything from the notice to the actual removal, and if need be, the court order, the warrant, if you will, could be obtained. So yes, there is a due process for every tow on private property.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Quainer.
Yes.
Councilman McBride.
Yes.
Councilman Harrell.
Yes.
Councilman Gann.
Yes.
Councilman Hatmaker.
Yes.
Councilwoman Manis.
Yes.
And Mayor Burton.
Yes, ordinance number 685 passes on the second of the final reading. Ordinance number 686, this is amending the CMC Title 7, Chapter 2, and Title 12 inclusive, adopting the current versions of various fire, building, housing, and standardized codes. Matt?
Okay, so there was only I would call it an administrative correction to a title of one of the, since the first to the second reading. It was on Exhibit 1. It was labeled property maintenance. It should have been labeled the building codes. That's the only change since first reading. But essentially, it's the 2021 codes and the 2017, as it says. And it also recognizes the AHO, and it also, as being part of the enforcement process. And then additionally, it also recognizes substantial amount of changes to the property maintenance code to include nuisance abatement, to address it from a nuisance standpoint. So that is what we're asking for on second reading.
Your motion to,
Basically, it's an upgrade to current standards.
That is correct, yes. From the 18 to the 2021.
I've done a motion. Haven't I? Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Quainer.
Yes.
Councilman McBride.
Yes.
Councilman Harrell.
Yes.
Councilman Gann.
Yes.
Councilman Hatmaker.
Yes.
Councilwoman Manis.
Yes.
Mayor Burton.
Yes, ordinance number 686 passes on second and final reading. Any old business before us? Any new business? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Meeting is adjourned.
You got one?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Quainer.
No.
Councilman McBride.
Yes.
Councilman Harrell.
Yes.
Councilman Gann.
Yes.
Councilman Hatmaker.
Yes.
Councilwoman Manis.
Yes.
And Mayor Burton.